Welcome to the Instinctive Influencers podcast, a show where influence becomes one of your tools for success. Now, here are your hosts, Brian Weber and Ed Haley.
Hi, I'm Brian.
And I am Ed.
And this is the Instinctive Influencers podcast. Ed, so it's been a couple weeks since we talked, man. You got to experience all kinds of stuff we just talked about. You and did this Oktoberfest thing. Ooh. I mean, it sounded like it was a riot, man.
That is a party. I mean, I haven't been to Mardi Gras or anything, the other major known parties. And we didn't go to Munich, which is the main Oktoberfest. We went to Mainz. But man, it was great. It was a good time.
So with that though, I mean, here in a couple of weeks, you're gonna have the rest of the you're gonna have the siblings there, the clan, the Haley clan's gonna be together, and I mean, basically, y'all are trying to take over Ireland, from what I understand, huh?
Yeah, it's time for the so we do the annual Haley sibling throwdown. And this year, because German ovens are small, so I'm not really buying that Hansel and Gretel story. German ovens are small, so to counter that, we decided to take a trip. So we're going to go to Ireland the Wednesday before Thanksgiving through the Saturday. And we're going to have our family throwdown in Ireland over some pints of Guinness and at a local restaurant. And it should be fantastic. And it's my first Thanksgiving with my nephew. He was there last year, but I was not. So,
oh, okay, all right. So with this, I mean, it's kind of funny that that's about to take place, right? And we've been talking about this charisma thing and how charisma works. And we started off with one element being presence, and then we talked about last week power, and then this week is about warmth. And I couldn't help but actually think about this. I mean, you're going to have the group together. It's going to be, it's that family, that feeling that you get when you're around family, most likely, where it's a good time. You get on each other's nerves, you laugh, you cry, all these different things. And it's almost like you're going to have that warmth, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah. So it's my favorite time of year. Honestly, we really haven't done a major Christmas celebration since we've been empty nested. So, this is like the point of the year I look forward to every year. Like, we do T-shirts and we have other traditions and the rousing it with each other and, them picking on me and me laying the smack down on them. Yeah, it is such an amazing time. And we've had guests over the years, people who, they couldn't be with their families, and we've involved them. And I feel like everybody's always enjoyed it. But this year, yeah, this year's going to be different.
Well, I mean, yeah, sure is. I mean, first is you're going to be in a totally different country. And then you said you're going to be at a restaurant when you do this?
Yeah, we're going to do a restaurant this year. So, but I mean, we talked about visualization before, Brian. And for me, this is one of those things that this time of year is something I like to visualize. Like if I'm having a rough patch or just in a bad mood, this is one of those things that, I can use the visualization techniques we've talked about before to help kind of snap me out of it. Is this time, like this family time? It means a lot to me.
To be completely honest, Ed, I'm kind of the same way. When it comes to this time of year, I enjoy, Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. I've always loved it. Even when I was a kid, though, that's what's weird. Christmas, you kind of, I don't know. I think you kind of you go in and out of spurts of Christmas being fun, but it's that Thanksgiving holiday that's really, I don't know. Maybe it's because I have a love for food. I don't know, but I just enjoy being around a lot of people and all the different foods, and just, it's just one of those times that I truly enjoy. And when I said that warmth, it's like, that's kind of how I feel. It's just like you feel complete more, and this will probably be, so since I've been with Michelle, this will be the fourth time that I've been away. And so it should be the fourth time that I had to miss one of these. And yeah, it's definitely one of those things where I pull closer to those around me kind of thing. So we'll see what happens. I know, for instance, here, I think we're serving food actually on Thanksgiving, at the DFAC.
Oh,
so
wow.
We'll see how things work out. Yeah. it's a little bit different because, in the States, it's different. Usually you do it like the day before Thanksgiving,
yeah.
then everybody disperses and go in different ways. So, yeah, I don't know if they do it like that there, but yeah. And to tell you the truth, man, I even took anybody that was on the duty roster for my CQ of my barracks, and I put my name on there. I just like, what else am I going to do? So one of my guys that works for me, one of the seniors, he took the runner off there and he jumped on there. And so we're just going to hang out, man. I'm probably going to steal a bunch of pumpkin pie because I really like pumpkin pie and just sit around and eat and get fat for a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, leadership capital, Brian, leadership capital. That's what you just did.
Yeah. I mean, and who knows? Maybe I'll do it at Christmas too. 'Cause it's not like most likely I'll do a video chat with my wife and children. So, at least I'll still see them. So it doesn't matter where I'm at, just as long as I got to see them.
Yeah. I mean, and it means a lot so that's going into warmth. So it means a lot to those soldiers when you do stuff like that. Cause I can remember being in Iraq on Christmas, a young specialist. And I remember all the seniors kicked us out of the guard towers and they pulled guard duty that day so that we can just go to the chow hall, hang out, talk to our loved ones. But I remember like here we are, we're talking 15 years. And I could feel the warmth of that right now. Not just the leadership that it showed, but the actual, they really care about us. And I think that plays well into what we're going to talk about today.
I think you're right, man. So I don't really think we should waste much time with it either because there's a lot of material to cover. Everything that I reread over again, like not too long before we got on, I was literally standing in the line of the commissary because it was rather lengthy, and I'm just reading through it again and just kind of like re-highlighting things in my mind of what to talk about. I'm like, man, this is a lot of stuff, so we got to get after it right now. I'm gonna start her off right here.
Let's get after it.
Yeah. All right, for the last few weeks, we've been talking about 3 components of personal charisma. First, we explored presence and giving people your full attention. Then we cover power and demonstrating the confidence that you can affect the world around you. And now today we're going to discuss the element of magnetism called warmth. And I can definitely say, Ed, that this is one of those things that it's either this one's not easy to just fake. And we're going to talk about that because there's some people that they fake this and they don't realize that other people notice it. You know what I mean? Like you can almost feel, just give it a little bit of time and you'll know if somebody's actually that feeling of warmth coming from someone that we're going to describe, if it's natural or it's sincere or it's completely fake. So we'll see what happens.
So at face value, Brian, when I saw this as one of the components of charisma, this is the one that I immediately was like, yep, that's my weakness.
Mm-hmm.
But after reading the article, it's not my biggest strength of all of them, but I also don't think it's as weak as I believed before. And hopefully somebody listening to this is going to realize, you know what? That's not a big weakness for me as I thought, because I really thought this was the one that was like, yep, I don't do this at all. But after reading the article, I think maybe, I'm okay.
I think you're about right. So right here, it says, just like power and presence, warmth is essential for balancing the other elements and also cannot produce true magnetism on its own. A man with power or woman, but not warmth, will come off as cold, arrogant, and aloof. Or a person with warmth, but not power, will be perceived as weak, eager to please, and desperate for approval. Now that when I read that the first time, I actually, as I was reading it, I was placing different faces of people that I've known for years as being like that. It's someone who has, they have power but no warmth, and you're just like, you know what? I don't like talking to that person because they're cold or they're arrogant or they're aloof. And the arrogant ones usually the ones that stick out. That's what sticks out the most with that. But then you think about those ones that are trying to be warmth and they try to act genuine and caring, but they have no power to them. They're kind of like that pushover, you know what I mean? And you get this sense of weakness. You get that sense of basically like they're they're people pleasers. They're trying to please those around them, and are always trying to seek approval. So they're always telling you all these wonderful things to do, so you can tell them how great they are, or how good they are, stuff like that. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. So actually, it's funny because the warmth, but no power or not power. That one reminds me of the science of likability. Be likable, not
Yes.
liked. So that is that person who feels that I need to be liked. That's them right there. They have warmth, they want to be light, but they do not have power. So, you know what I mean? Like we talked in depth about that. And I think that's actually an excellent kind of connection between an earlier episode and today.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I just mentioned earlier, that warmth is it's one of those ones that's hard to fake because you can really tell. And then they talk here, they said, but people are pretty good at sniffing out fake warmth. And in fact, have a natural tendency to positively recoil when they think you're offering the counterfeit variety. I can tell you from personal experience, when I've noticed people are being that fakeish warmth type thing, that's when I'm on my guard the most, where I don't, as we've said it before. As a matter of fact, I was telling my wife about this because she was wanting some advice about doing a group discussion. And I was telling her about the arena and how we used to talk about it. The arena is basically, it's the area where everybody around you knows everything in it, right? So if I throw in that I like, football, and I enjoy doing this with my kids, and I like running, and I like to listen to Taylor Swift on the side. So I threw all that in the arena, and now people know that stuff about me. I feel like when I notice somebody's being fake, and you could just, it's just that feeling. It's like, wait, that just doesn't seem genuine. You tend to restrict yourself from adding things into the arena because you don't want that used against you, because you literally feel like they're only acting this way because of personal gain. They're seeking personal gain. Have you ever felt that way?
Yeah, it's like it's for their own benefit. It's not really genuine, I guess, is really what it boils down to. And you do notice that, like, it's just what do they call it? Buttering you up. They're just buttering you up, but they're buttering you up for a reason. So the warmth is them buttering you up. And then they come back behind and say, well, can you pull my CQ on Saturday? Like,
yes.
It was something in it for them. It wasn't about genuine warmth.
And just doing it out of the blue for someone, and I've got some examples of things that I'll bring up throughout that'll kind of hit upon that. But right here, this one, warmth backfires when people can tell you're offering it for one reason and one reason alone: to get something from them. Hence, our distaste for salesmen who lay the warmth on thick for the sake of trying to close the deal. That's it. Carpetbaggers, they call them, or the sneaky, what do they call this? Snake oil salesmen. And we're not referring to
snake oil salesmen.
Yeah, we're not, but we got to be careful because we also offer the snake oil beard balm for bearded ninja. So that's totally different. But
and there's his mention.
And there it is. It's not that you shouldn't want things from other people. Pretty much the whole point of charisma is to influence others to do something, whether that's getting them to buy a product, go on a date, or serve a cause with passion. Rather, it's simply that influencing them can't be your only motive. Right there, okay? And this, Ed, when I read this, man, this is exactly what I'm talking about, man. When we're doing, you and I, the whole point behind this, that sentence, it's simply that influencing them can't be your only motive. That from the get-go, when we started doing this, our only motive was, it had nothing to do with influencing for our gain. It was always about let's share. We enjoy doing this. And that's, to me, that's for others. So if somebody listens to this, and we talked about this, a couple of episodes, we've talked to it many episodes, to give others something else that they can use. And if you get nothing back, I don't care, because it was a gift. That's the whole point behind it. For warmth to come off as genuine, It must be rooted in something deeper than a purely selfish motive. It must spring from your own contentment with life. Now that contentment with life, you,
Mm.
too many times people are not content enough with their life. So to get ahead, they feel like they have to use other people to help get them ahead. Simon Sinek says that some corporate or organizations have it wrong. They use you to get ahead instead of putting you before them, in which to me makes perfect sense. If I put you before me, then everything is better no matter what. But if I use you to get myself, spring myself up, sooner or later you're going to move and I'm going to fall.
Yeah, no, this is making me think we were talking about the holiday season and Thanksgiving, and I said a lot of people have attended our little sibling throwdown, but like I'm talking like soldiers have come, warrant officers who didn't get to go home with their family, senior NCOs who didn't get to go home with their families. But I never did that like, okay, so this is going to help get me promoted. You know what I mean? I did it because I didn't think it was right that they weren't going to be with their families. So that, to me, that conveyed kind of a genuine warmth. I cared about them. It was never, well, Brian makes a mean sweet potato pie, so I need to invite Brian. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm kind of seeing the vision of as you do this.
Yeah.
It's just a genuine thing. Also, our evaluations. We have leaders out there to do things for their evaluations, right? They want to be able to put these things on there, but at the end of the day, that's their own selfish motive. When in reality, to show genuine warmth, they should just be doing these things, and then somebody should say, hey, I'm going to put this on your evaluation after the fact. Not you going, okay, if I do this, that'll get on my evaluation and help me. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like,
oh, yeah, absolutely.
I just,
yeah. Go ahead.
No. Yeah. It was all that was running through my mind here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's funny. That's the thing is I've always, and I don't know, there's no need to sit there and brag about what you've done to get somebody to watch you more or say, hey, make sure you watch me so we can get this on an evaluation. And there may be people who disagree with me in my thought process on this. This is just how I look at it. If you don't notice things I'm doing in the background and things are functioning good, and obviously I'm not ragging myself out, like making myself ragged because I'm working too much and I'm not having people do their job type thing. But what I mean is things are conducted on a daily basis and things are running smoothly and you don't notice me, then something's being done right. And at the same time, I've always been one of those people, and this is, and I've had seniors tell me, no, that's not the right way, but I disagree with it. That's just me. I usually like to go ahead and do a draft of what you just said, that NCOR, and go ahead, let me put what I did, because I know me. I know who I am. I know what I did. Let me put in these things, and then I'll give it to my rater and say, okay, here you go. And that gives them a starting point, one. And two, I don't have to worry about all the different things of, well, this, that, and that. You know what I mean? So at the same time, I'm still getting the things I need done, and I'm making sure that I don't have somebody watching over my back all the time type thing. Let's just get this stuff done and do it because you want to make something happen good. Just this week.
Absolutely.
Just this week, I'm sitting down, and we were in my office. My commander's sitting across from me, and I looked at him. I said, sir, what's your plan? I asked him, so what's your plans for the holidays? And he's like, oh, well, we're gonna hand out food and stuff like that, at the DFAC stuff. I said, oh, yeah, I got that. I said, but what are you thinking about? Because we have a lot of people that are not going anywhere. And he's like, yeah, I've been thinking about that too. That we need to kind of have a presence, and just kind of show our faces around where they're living and stuff, especially the barracks. You know what I mean? Because that's when most of the people, those of you who don't know, a lot of the kids that live in the barracks, they're the junior enlisted, and they're missing their family. This is probably their first time away from, and it's like you have to like show them that warmth. That's probably, to me, that's one of the most key times. And it's not, I'm not going up there to show my face so everybody be like, oh yeah, he's making his NCOR look great. No, I don't give a crap about that. That doesn't matter to me. What I do care about is one of the things that Ed and I talk about quite a few times, and I can go all the way back to early episodes, but it's about that 22 a day and people who fall into depression and things like that. If they know you care about them,
Mm-hmm.
they want to be there with you. You know what I mean? That to me, that's how I feel. What would you say, Ed?
Yeah, because I mean, you know, when they stay, I used to hate that, you know, soldiers would stay and not get to go home for the holidays. And again, that's where the whole Thanksgiving. I mean, one year, man, 27 people in my house. I had a little small house at Fort Campbell, 27 people. But you know what? When I was a private, I was that guy that didn't go home for the holidays. And I never forgot that feeling because it's easy. And then for me, my thought is that's when dark thoughts start entering your head. You know what I mean? Like, because that's your alone time and it's you in those four walls and your junk food, your video game, maybe a to-go plate from the dining facility, but that's all there is. And, you know, dark things can happen out of that. So I think that's why it's important to have genuine warmth and invite somebody in your home, and you may learn something about that person. So, especially, you remember the year we deployed together, it was really bad because it was so close, the deployment was so close to Thanksgiving that a lot of people did not go home.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, and there was a lot that had to be taken care of. But I think what I was getting with that too, though, is if you're able to draw upon that of yourself, it helps you to relate. And we're going to talk about that. That's one of the elements that, you know, to be able to draw upon how you can relate to the individuals helps you be more warm towards individuals. Right here, I just mentioned about contentment with life. Then there's an and a real empathy and curiosity about other people. Empathy and curiosity. And that's where I was getting at is if you can relate through your empathy for them, it helps you. And then a curiosity. Like, do you really want to know about them? You would be shocked to know how many people like that I've talked to, and it's just through general conversation that I find out that their child is autistic also. And it's like, wow, this is just, you know, and then you start relating stories and stuff and you create a connection. And most of the time it's about, you know, like it's usually funny stories, you know, or real good stories and stuff like that. And you're like, you know what? It helps you relate to them and helps you to have that warmth and that empathy, and you become more curious about them and you talk to them and stuff. And we talked about in Science of Likability that you obviously you don't want to use that information to try to get in the good graces, but at the same time, well, when I'm around, I don't want to be around a bunch of negative Nancys, and I don't even know who Nancy is, but I hope she's not that negative. But I mean, if you get, you know, you just get to know them. With that, a man of real warmth enjoys getting to know folks from all walks of life. Conveys this sense that even if he doesn't get from them what he was looking for, he'd still judge the interaction to have been worthwhile. A man of real warmth is one who feels that crossing paths with another person is never a true waste. I couldn't agree more. You know, get to know as many people as you can. And I think that helps to, you know, that whole curiosity and relating. Once you get to know more people, it's just, you create this community type of thing. And what's even funnier, like, especially with the Army, you stick around the people within your job set or your skill set. But it's funny how you can also meet other people from an outside of your skill set. And then down the road, you start running into other people who knew that person. And then so it's like, it's almost like the Kevin Bacon game, but it's in the Army instead. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Yes. What's it? 6 degrees?
Yeah.
7 degrees. This Kevin Bacon. Yeah. And the Army is, that's when you realize how small the Army is too. I know you and I currently, there's somebody I work with that knew you way back when, you know, and it's like, oh, that's weird, but okay. You know, the guy I went to Oktoberfest with, him and I, the guy that I went to the Oktoberfest with, him and I were stationed together at Fort Hood 11 years ago, and then we reconnected here. Well, I worked with another guy who I didn't realize knew my buddy that I knew from Hood. So it was like, oh, wait a minute. We're going to Oktoberfest together, and we didn't even realize it. So
Yeah.
It's those little small connections that are, interesting about just talking to other people. Over here, I like talking to other people. I think it's interesting. I think the different cultures are super interesting. Today's a holiday here. It's All Saints Day, I think is what they call it in Germany. To me, it's an interesting holiday. We had Halloween yesterday when we were the day before we recorded this, obviously. And All Saints Day, they basically are going to go visit their relatives who have passed already, and they go and they light candles at the gravesides and things like that as part of the celebration. So interesting. Also a day off for work for me, but it was just interesting to me, and I like talking to the German people that I work with about it.
And I mean, if you think about it, Dan, it's just it's funny how you start connecting the dots with other people, and I don't know, I've enjoyed all the different walks of life that I've gotten to meet just over the past 21 years. I want to say also though, it kind of teaches you not to burn bridges. Because when you start burning those, then, obviously, and that's the opposite of what we're trying to get here. That's the opposite of the charisma. That's the opposite of the three areas of, presence, power, and warmth, is when you start burning bridges and you destroy relationships. To continue to build upon that, though, let's look at how we're going to actually be developing warmth within. Now, we've actually did a whole show once on gratitude. So I don't want to dive too deep into gratitude other than I think there's a simple, easy way to develop that gratitude. And it's a starting point. We're taught this early on. Ed, you said it yourself in a couple of different shows before. It's what our parents have taught us since we were little of what do you say? Thank you. Or say hello, or say you're welcome. Things like that. Those small little instances, those small little words, I think help us build upon gratitude. And then it turns into an automatic thing. Well, and then people notice that, oh, well, I like talking to Ed because he always says thank you to me, or he says you're welcome, or he says hello to me each day. And it's just doing those small things, I think, help you build up your gratitude. It's like you can't just have gratitude. And wow, he's got a lot of gratitude. No, you have to kind of build into it, and it just grows, if so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so I told you I was reading the charisma myth book too, and when this is one of the things it talks about. And in this article, it's in here and it's in the book where it talks about that to help cultivate your gratitude, make it a practice to write down what you're grateful for every day. Goes back to when we talk about the Master Resilience Training course, where we talk about hunt the good stuff, something that happened good to you. And so that is a tool to use. Is what are you grateful for? I remember maybe it was a couple of years ago, leading into Thanksgiving, there was like this 30-day challenge. Every day you had to write something you were thankful for. So basically have gratitude for, and it makes you think. And then it really does enlighten you. You're like, wow, like I'm very fortunate, So a simple exercise is writing down things you're grateful for could just really impact not only your level of gratitude, but your mood and how you feel about yourself and how you feel about your life. So it was a good tool. And in the audio book, she was talking about it.
So, we've talked about like how we each week we're trying to do something from this. I kind of jumped ahead and already started trying to do that. And the gratitude is one of the ones that I try to do. So for instance, today I was feeling a little pinch on something that, it was weighing heavy on my mind. And, sometimes if you feel pinched a little bit, or like you have to get something done and you're trying to figure out all the different steps and, make sure you hit all these things, you kind of get yourself into a bit of a spiral, right? And you talk about an MRT too, that downward spiral. And I was sitting in my car and I was getting ready to get out of it. Before I got out of the car, I told myself, you know what? Hey, just say hello and tell people have a good day, So, and this is from my car to the door, to my office. Every single person that I passed, and I think it was about like 8 or 9 people that I passed. I asked them how their day was. And then I finished it off with, I hope you have a wonderful day. And I just kept going. And they probably thought like, what is wrong with this guy? Like, because I said it to every single person. Just because it's like, I've got to get myself, in the right mindset to be able to deal with things. And I truly believe that when you start the downward spiral, the negative thought process, you'll only think about negative outcomes instead of positive outcomes, so you can actually build upon the decision-making process.
So my question to you is, did you notice a difference? Did you notice it altering how you felt or, your mood for the day?
I think it did. Yeah, it really did. And to tell you the truth, as I was doing it, I was trying to notice those individuals too, to be more mindful during the situation, each one. And some of like they would smile or they would laugh or just, you know what I mean? And or because I didn't say it the same way every day. I said, make sure you put a smile on today because, you can carry that throughout the day and stuff like, and it's just funny because you think about it too. Like in my position, people tend to do things because I have to tell them to do something, but they don't have to smile if I say, hey, you need to smile. They do it because they're like, wow, I can't believe somebody wanted to engage me like that. You know what I mean? Like
that,
and that's the whole point. It's like, why, if you're a person in a position of power, which we've talked about, and you want to have presence around people, why not have them ask them, hey, are you having a good day? I hope you have a good day. Or ask them to smile. Hey, make sure you smile today, or whatever. It changes their mind frame. Even if it's for a couple minutes, you give them that much joy for a couple minutes. That's all. Now, I got it. There are times when, that take a total seriousness. People are frowning, whatever. I just don't find as much pleasure in that as like, hey, I hope you have a good day, whatever. And to tell you the truth, out of probably those 8 or 9 people, I only knew like 2 of them. So the rest are all completely strangers. So I just kind of picked apart a little bit about the gratitude thing. I think with that though, the next one we're going to kind of get into is developing that empathy we talked about. And I really believe that this particular one, it all has to do with, I think it has to do with how you relate to them because you've kind of gone through the same thing, or you've learned to adapt your mind frame to, go through the same thing as they went through. So this is so funny. And we'll look at the top part first, and then we'll get to the bottom part where it talks about your brother and sister. Teddy Roosevelt called empathy fellow feeling and argued that it was the most important factor for a healthy political and social life. It's also an important factor in developing charismatic warmth. People want to feel understood, and empathy is what allows us to put ourselves in their shoes and feel what they feel. So here in a minute, it talks about think of other people as your brothers and sisters. So I got a funny story for you. No joke.
All right.
I just talked to my kids this morning after they went trick-or-treating. They went, so obviously I'm a day ahead of them, and they just finished trick-or-treating and then talking to me. And my son, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he says, oh, and we went by your brother's house. And my wife, she says, what do you mean his brother? And Ethan goes, yeah, it was his brother's house. And I already knew what he was talking about because he hears me all the time. And I want to say it was one of the guys that worked at the academy. I'm pretty sure I know which one it was.
Yeah.
I think it was Blankenship, by the way. And he's heard me call you guys brother. Like, thanks, brother. Well, one day, no joke, he looked at me and he said, Dad, you've got a lot of brothers. I said, I sure do, buddy, and sisters too. And I don't think he understood it at the moment. So at one point, I think he actually thought all of you were my brothers. So that's my little Ethan story about as your brother and sisters. So, yeah. I think
that's an excellent way to have that's an excellent misunderstanding, though. I think that's a great frame of reference for him and a great thought process, though, for him to think like that, because you're teaching him that everybody can be my brother and sister, which goes into what we're talking about here today on this empathy.
Exactly. Right. It's just, so think of everyone as your brother and sister. If you think about it, it's one of those things where when I see somebody else, I actually feel like they're my brother or my sister. You know what I mean? Like, and especially in the service, as well as I do. So there may be people who are listening that they don't really know what it's like when you're a service member, like how close you are with people. And the best way I could relate it to somebody who's never served would be just think about it like your best friend or your actual blood brother that you're actually close with. That's kind of like what it is with us, because when you think about it, man, like the things that you go through, the things that you deal with, they're there are some conversations that are had between two men, or a man or two women, or a man and a woman, or whatever, in the service, that are probably not even had with their real family. And that's how close the connection is. So that's why I'm able to, like, that particular one, to be able to relate is, that's my brothers and sisters. Absolutely. So one of the examples, when I have to do, like, for instance, sharp training and whatnot, basically, sexual harassment, sexual assault training, basically, I usually like to reference as this. You think about, if something happened to your brother and sister by somebody else, would that not anger you? And then I like to go further on and say, well, then it's our duty to stop something that we may see happening to one of our brothers and sisters, because that's who they are, and it kind of puts you in a different mindset, I think. So what are your thoughts on that, brothers and sisters, man?
Yeah, well, in the Army, there's a reason that we have that saying that we are a band of brothers and sisters, and I've heard that throughout my career when you talk about sharp, and, because that's, there's a special bond with your brothers and sisters, and then there is a special bond between you and, your peers or your subordinates or whatever in the military. You think about it, we work 12 hours a day or more side by side with this person. So in some instances, especially when you're gearing up for like a deployment or something like that, you're spending more time with those people than you are your actual family. So that bond, you can't fight that bond. You know what I mean? So
right.
It helps in understanding what they're experiencing and what they're going through.
Yeah, it does. It really does help out. And you're exactly right too, because when you spend that many hours a day, you tend to learn stuff about people sometimes you just don't want to know either. So, and believe me, I've some stories.
Yeah.
I think this next one that he talks about with the empathy thing, this definitely falls in your little neck of the woods, with the whole interacting face to face more and less, through the electronics. I think
yes,
the way we're able to connect face to face, that helps out. You want to hit upon that a little bit?
Yeah, so we're talking about interacting. It says interact with people face to face, and then it provides some science. According to a study that has been tracking this since 1979, college students are 40% less empathetic than their counterparts 30 years ago. So, the author argues, well, what's the decline? And the author argues they can be traced to the fact that we're interacting less face to face and more as disembodied cells online. So, in my footprint where I work, it's much easier for somebody to shoot an email.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even like to use the phone. People don't even like to call each other on the phone, much less face to face. So for me, I try sometimes. If my email don't get answered, I might call and then go face to face. But more often than not, I'm going to actually flip with step 2 and 3. I emailed, I didn't get an answer. I'm just going to go. It's just easier, and I get steps. And that face-to-face interaction is very hard. So you can blow me off on the phone, right? You can blow me off through email. It's really hard to hide your feelings and blow me off if we're face-to-face. And that's just how it is. We work one of the other sections. Somebody has their vacation message on all the time. It never comes off. They change the dates, but that's it, right? So basically every time you email them, it says, hey, I'm TDY. Well, that's not the truth. And then when you call, they will not answer the phone. Like, I've literally called from the office across from them just to check this. They won't answer the phone because they're busy, and they don't want to deal with you. But meanwhile, I'm waiting on information that prevents me from moving forward in my day for whatever planning purpose. And you're in your office just ignoring people. So it's hard for you to do that if I just come in your office. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm a bigger fan of face-to-face. And I'm also old enough that I've seen the decline in face-to-face contact. So, yeah, it's so much easier just to shoot an email. Even in the Army, I remember when everybody didn't have a computer. So you couldn't just shoot an email. And this was only maybe 15 years ago. Now everybody has a computer. You know what I mean? Like, every private has a computer. in 2004, 2005, if you weren't a sergeant or a lieutenant, you didn't have a computer. You had to be at least a sergeant. So it changes that interaction, right?
Yeah. So it's funny you say that. I still got some like the 2.5 floppy disks. I still have some at home with counts and statements on them.
See?
Yeah, because you didn't have a computer to yourself, so you had to have a way to save it, and it wasn't like the laptops then or the computers then had a lot of space on them. So it was like you go to supply and you go sign out some they called them floppy disks. They were the smaller versions, and like I have an actual case of them, and I mean it makes me want to like find an old disk drive and see if I can connect it to my computer and plug it in, try to read some of the stuff I wrote back
Well,
then.
before the Army outlawed them.
Yeah.
Before the Army outlawed them, I actually still have my 1 gig, which was a huge deal, thumb drive with my leader's book on it and some other information. Yeah. The problem with it is I don't remember the password. Like, I thought I was hot stuff. I had a thumb drive with a passport or password. And when you enter the password, a little vault showed on the screen and opened up. Yeah, I don't remember the password, but I know the thumb drive because there's a little red one that still says Sergeant or Specialist Haley on it.
All right, so this very next one, they put in this. I don't know if it's true or not. He talks about read more fiction. It's supposed to help you with empathy. He says studies show that reading fictional literature expresses the mental muscles that strengthen empathy. I don't know if that's real, but here's the spin on it. I don't read fiction. I've heard that it's good to read fiction every once in a while to help, just basically help stimulate the brain and stuff. And the crazy thing is I watch a lot of stuff, that's fiction based, science fiction, whatever. Like I love Star Wars. I like this new Star Trek Discovery. I enjoyed Game of Thrones. I love all it is to be comic books wise because I love how it explores the mind and stuff. But I think I'm gonna have to actually try that part, Ed. I want to see if that actually but then again, I have to say, I did used to like reading like zombie Armageddon type books. When I was employed one time, I read like a series of 3 different books, and it was pretty good. But I didn't notice it, doing helping me with my empathy at all. It was entertaining. I know that. So now your wife, she's really big into fiction stuff.
Yeah, that's weird, that fiction thing. I don't know. Yeah.
I was getting at it was your wife, Tam. She's really big into fiction stuff. Now, do you now? And she has a big heart. We know that. You said she cries easy sometimes, right?
Yes.
Do you think
which is not a flaw?
No. I'm not saying no, not at all. She just has a tender heart. I'm wondering if. Maybe you should talk to her sometime about it to find out if she thinks reading all the fictional helps her connect more with people. I don't know. I've never related that.
I've never thought of it like that either. So I do read some fiction, but unfortunately the fiction I read is Dan Brown or Brad Meltzer, which is really based on history. So it's fiction, but it's not, especially Brad Meltzer. It's fiction, but it's not fiction. I don't know.
Yeah, he writes differently.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess. There's science to back it up. So, I'm not one to argue against the science of it, but it'd be interesting. I have too much of my reading list to attempt to read fiction right now, but
that's how I feel.
Yeah, I'm gonna have that discussion with her. I'm gonna ask her.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. It's like my reading list is so big and I'm trying to like cram so much different stuff into it that it's like, can I really fit that in there? So maybe I'll have to just kind of tell myself. But you know what though? Didn't Jocko talk about that once though? That he likes to throw in fiction every once in a while? I'm pretty sure I've heard him say something about that.
I don't recall. I'm sure he does though. He reads so much.
No, I do remember. I do remember now. It was something about it was on one of his shows, and he was talking about the Hackworth book about face. And then something happened, and somebody had him read something else to get his mind off of like all the normal stuff or like the real life stuff. And he said he picked up this book and this other book, and he just loved it. And I can't remember the name of the book now, but I remember him talking about it during one of his podcasts that he did have, and he finds himself now doing it every once in a while, just grabbing a fictional book and reading it. It was some time back.
Yeah, I don't remember.
All right, so hey, here's the next one. Here we go. Imagine a different story about the people who annoy you. Oh my goodness. So I can speak to this one, like no joke. That one I do test that one out. I test that one out on myself and with people around me. And then there's sometimes I forget to actually do this, and then I get, like disgruntled or something, and then I have to kind of like get back out of it. And he right off the bat, his very first example, I found myself doing this. When you cut someone off while driving, you think to yourself, I hate to have done that, but if I don't get to this interview on time, I won't get the job. But when someone else cuts you off, you think, what a complete, you know what? I've done that so many times and in the past, but as I've, kind of like as I've gotten older, like it's just leave earlier. That's how I am. Like if I didn't leave early enough, then it's my own fault. And I try to let people in front of me and stuff like, I don't know. I guess that's a part of patience. I'm not sure. But when somebody cuts me off, now I try to tell myself, I wonder if they're running late for something. Well, I hope they make it, that type thing.
Yeah.
Now, the occasional laying on the horn or whatever, that happens. So, or if somebody's, I wouldn't say annoying me, but somebody's just kind of, I guess, getting on my nerves or something. I try to remind myself that I don't know what they're going through right now. I don't know what's in their personal life. I don't know what their finances are sitting like. I don't know all these different things. So I probably should be careful about judging them. And that's one of those reminders I like to use. What about you? Do you have anything like that?
So it's funny because I'm actually sometimes, I get a little ridiculous sometimes, but sometimes, like the cutting off, my wife will get upset and I'll say, well, how do you know that maybe this and this isn't going on? So I have done it without even thinking about it, but not a lot, like not all the time. So I think this is one I'd like to try. Now I have, thought about this as far as from a leadership perspective, like, okay, well, yeah, that soldier's messing up, but maybe they're having some problems at home, because that's what we do, right? We have to peel back the onion.
Yes.
And to me, this is kind of like peeling back the onion right here.
Yes.
It's not black and white, cut and dry. So yeah, I've used this. I've seen the great John Rogers use this very effectively. Because it does help you get to the root of something, but I've never done it with just some random person on the road like that. Like every once in a while with my wife, I'll say something, and usually it's just an attempt to be the annoying person to her. But and she doesn't enjoy when I do it. But sometimes I'll say, well, you don't know. Maybe you don't know their struggle.
No, I've definitely said the same thing, man. And I think, when you said that, when you're counseling someone or you're trying to discuss things with somebody, especially in the service with us, when we have to do counselings and whatnot, you tend to want to pry into their business a little bit, but you do it in a manner that's like you're concerned, and you generally are. You can always tell a certain type of leader, though, who does it in a manner that's not as forceful, but more like, hey, everything okay? Why don't you sit down and talk to me a minute? It just seems like you're a little off, things like that. When you say words like that, they tend to want to come back at you, and show you that, hey, there is something going on. And you're right, exactly. When you said, hey, that soldier seems to be having a hard time today, obviously there's got to be something going on with them. To me, if I'm noticing that, I'm approaching them. I'm going to say something to them, but not in a manner that's like threatening. You know what I'm saying? Like it needs to be welcoming, and creates that warmth.
I think it's important to recognize it too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Because you could come off with the questioning and be considered intrusive. And now you've completely demolished what you're trying to build within, the rapport and having that warmth. That's where I think we talked about it in the past episode where we're talking about emotional intelligence. You have to be able to kind of observe and be able to kind of relate and whatnot. And we're going to talk about a little bit about reflecting too, like their body position and stuff too. It kind of helps out. And you don't always notice it either. But and then this last one, he's talking about being curious about people. I think that's a common, to me, as I went through this whole entire article, Ed, and was trying to learn, I think that was like the common theme, is being curious about people allows you to have the warmth. If that makes sense.
No, it 100% makes sense. This is another one that I think plays straight into being an influencer and a leader, because I need to know what makes my peers and my subordinates and even my superiors, I need to know what makes them tick. Like, what is their, I want to know what their triggers are. I want to know what their, feel good moments are. I want to understand that to create a better culture or environment where we work at. So I think that's why this one's really important.
Oh, absolutely. All right. So we're going to actually jump into the whole conveying warmth to others. And this is where the author goes with this. So if warmth is hard to fake and must be developed from within, what role do outward behaviors play? First, it's possible to have a good heart, but be terrible at conveying this kindness to others. You may not even be aware that you're coming off as aloof to others, since you think of yourself as a good dude. It's important to not only have inner warmth, but to be able to communicate this warmth to those around you. Second, acting warm outwardly enhances how warm you feel inwardly. It's a virtuous cycle. You act warmly towards others, so you feel warm inside, which makes you act more warmly, and so on. In fact, acting warmly will develop your inner warmth more quickly and effectively than thinking your way to empathy ever will. Don't wait until you feel like an empathetic person before you start acting like it. By acting, you become. Work on both your behavior and mindset at the same time. They go hand in hand. Yeah, I think it speaks exactly the truth. You can't just be constantly thinking about it. If you think about it, you're actually going to overdo something. Am I acting warm enough? No, it's a feeling. You have this feeling. If somebody replies a certain way, I just have to know that I need to be able to react to what they're saying and ask either the right question or give them the right type of comment back to comfort them. Now, here one of the toughest things I could possibly ever say, and I don't know how you feel about this, Ed, and maybe you can tell me. If somebody has a family member that passes away and they're near me, that's the hardest thing to do, is to kind of show your gratitude to them and tell them how sorry you are for them. I find that to be one of the hardest things ever, because it's like, what's the right words? I don't think we're supposed to, I don't know. You want to comfort them, but you also don't want to be intrusive in that same way, because you don't want to say something that's going to be offensive and all this stuff. And then at the same time, you don't not want to say something, because then you'll be cold. So I always find that that's probably the hardest thing for me personally to show my warmth. How about you, Ed?
Yeah, that is a difficult one. It's difficult for me within your family, your traditional family environment. But then for us as non-commissioned officers, now we're talking about our young soldiers. Maybe it's the first time they've experienced a death in their family, because we get them, they're 18, 19, 20 years old, right? So maybe this is their first. Yeah, that is and I had that experience, and I've shared it on here before, in Iraq or Afghanistan, and it was rough. Luckily, I had Frances, who handled it actually well, and she was one of our least empathetic people, but she handled that situation and really bailed me out of a uncomfortable Because again, you want to say, hey, I know what you're going through, because you've probably experienced it, but do you really? You don't know their exact relationship with that person. You know what I mean? Like, so it's very, I can tell you, so my cousin, who was my favorite, absolute favorite, even my other cousins would tell you, he passed this year. And for my wife, it's tough.
Yes.
She wanted to be there for me. She wanted to support me, but she really didn't know what's the words. So she actually went with silence and just support, like a shoulder. You know what I mean? And that worked for us because she just didn't understand it. You know, it's so difficult a thing for the person going through it, but then for you to try to comfort them, and you want to so bad, you want to be there for them, you want to show that warmth for them, and it's hard. It's probably one of the hardest things. I agree with you, Brian.
Yeah, that was probably one of the tough ones. But let's reverse that about the birth of a child. Like, how do we show that? So somebody, let's for instance, somebody them or their spouse had a or whoever they're with, they had a child. They brought a new life came. How do we show that in the same way? Because I mean, it's so death is a sorrowful type thing, but then birth, it's easier, isn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's way easier to be like, "Oh man, that's awesome! Congratulations!" And yeah, that's actually very easy, to cope with.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can kind of see what you're saying. It's very much a huge difference between the two.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, and where I'm getting at with it is, it's finding that middle ground and knowing that there's two extremes, and to be able to put yourself and sway back and forth. And you're going to have, every once in a while, you're going to have to deal with the two sides of things. You have the great joy of a brand new child, or the sorry, the sorrow of of a loved one being lost. Either way, and it's being able to, I guess, be able to run through those peaks and valleys of emotions to be able to relate to someone. But at the same time, it's like, you never know how to react to certain people on certain, because it could be the opposite effect. And I don't know, I've never dealt with this before, where someone's like really happy that somebody passed, or they're really sad that a baby came. You know what I mean? Like, I haven't really met people like that, but then again, you know what? There's all kinds of walks of life, and you never know, man. So let's talk about it right here. If you're worried about coming off as fake by acting warmly before you feel it inside, don't be. As long as you at least have a good motive for your interactions, you'll be fine. See right there, a good motive. And that falls back onto, I think it also falls back on earlier when I just mentioned, is being curious about people and also wanting to do something for somebody else. The following behaviors, unless you do them awkwardly or exaggeratedly, are very easy to pull off quite naturally. They are small ways to simply put your best foot forward with people. And if they do come off as not well timed and whatnot, well, then don't worry about it. It's not going to hurt so much, right? So we goes through here. So it talks about, think of yourself as the host. Do you do that at all, Ed?
Yeah, you want to try to put them. So we do it as non-commissioned officers sometimes, right? So talk to a soldier goes to parade rest, and then sometimes what we tell them, hey, just relax, because you want to like loosen the mood a little bit for them, make them a little bit more comfortable. So I'm concentrating on comfort, so we do that in our profession. We do it from time to time. Or you as the first sergeant, you're talking to them about a matter, you may tell them, hey, come in. Their first their first thought is to stand there, at parade rest in front of your desk, and you'll be like, hey, take a seat, go ahead, no, just go sit down, because you're trying to make them comfortable for the discussion. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what I think of for what we do. Like, you just want to put them at ease. It's especially if it's a difficult topic. You're already, I'm not saying disciplinary, but if it's a difficult thing, you may want to put them at ease because they already got enough stress. Why add to it? Like, let's get them comfortable and then have a discussion. And that's just where I kind of think of it at. as.
Yeah, because I tend to, whether people are coming in my office to just talk, or they're coming in because we had to go over something, or they had to come see me because something they did was bad, they shouldn't have done it. I always tell everyone to have a seat. I feel like, obviously, I mean, even if I'm, well, I can say in this past week I did bring somebody in my office and chewed them out, and we stood standing the whole time, but in most cases, they sit down and we have a conversation, because I personally think, like, when you talk to somebody like that, there's a level of intimacy that allows for a respectful nature. One, they can see that you have respect, and also they're going to give respect back too, because you have that respect for them. At the same time, I think usually when people are sitting down, they tend to get a little bit more honest. They're less to button their mouths. You know what I mean? Like they want to talk, or they want to say something.
And I think it's because they're comfortable.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, I think if you make them stand there and they're not comfortable in the environment, they're less likely to open up. Where if you make them comfortable, you know what I mean? It's a little easier for them, and a little more relaxed environment. Then, yeah, I agree with you 100%. I've seen it a dozen times. Like, they're going to open up more because of their comfort level.
And it's funny, Ed, I don't know how many times that I had to stand at attention or parade rest in front of somebody, whether it be good or bad. And all my mind was, man, I hope they hurry up, because I'm tired of standing like this. That's all I kept thinking about. I probably didn't catch half the stuff that they said.
Yeah, my shoulder really hurts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
yeah, you're not, and you're fiddling with your fingers behind your back. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or do I have a power? Does this look like a power pose? From the last show. Anyways. All right. So the next thing he talks about here is lead with a sincere compliment. I agree with this. I think this is definitely something I practice a lot. I personally, my own life, that I practice a lot with lots of people. I started with my children and my spouse first. I always try to, lead them with a compliment or whatever. Just the other day, I was driving in my car to work, and this song came on, and it, like, the words of it were just right. And like back in our day, Ed, we used to like make mixtapes and give them to people. You remember that?
Yes, you spent like 18 hours making a mixtape because you had to record the songs off the radio. Yeah, I do remember that.
Now it's not hard to just build a playlist and then share it with someone. But I was riding in the car, and it made me think of that, because usually you make like a love mixtape for your girlfriend and give her to back in the day. But so I'm riding in the car.
Yeah, the quiet storm.
Yeah, the kids. Let me back that up a second. The kids nowadays will never know the struggle of making just the right lover mixtape and getting the songs in just the right order and all that stuff. Now it's just like save as and all this stuff. It's really quick. Back then it's like, man, you had to catch that song at the right time. It might take a week to build a mixtape.
Hope that the DJ don't talk during the song at all.
Or it doesn't, yeah, like the song doesn't start while the DJ is still talking, or he doesn't chime in at the end and cut it off. Yeah. So anyway, so I was getting at was the song came on, and so it would have been later in the evening, my time. Well, when I say later in the evening, I would say more like 6 or 7. And I heard the song, and I was like, as soon as I stopped my car, I hit the little button, because on my phone it'll tell me what song it is right off the bat, like real quick. So just immediately I sent it to my wife, and she had just woken up and she listened to what I sent her, and she was really, really happy, because I thought it was real sweet, but to me it also played into that whole a sincere compliment, because it literally, the song was about, I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for you. That's kind of like the whole idea behind the song. And I thought to myself, like, obviously I'm not going to make mixtapes for my soldiers anytime soon, but I think about like how we relate to people using that empathy. And we try to use a sincere compliment, if I don't mind it when people do it because they feel like they have to. Let's say, hey, hi, first one, how you doing? Have a good day. But if they really want to say hi or they really want to talk, it doesn't hurt my feelings. I'm not the most unapproachable person in the world. I know, Ed, you're not. You just seem like a big bear. But I mean, I'm pretty sure anybody can give you a hug and you'll be, like the teddy bear. But that whole sincere compliment.
That's not a fact.
I was just saying it because I want to see how many people try to come by your office and give you a hug that listen to the show.
Yeah.
But leading with that sincere compliment towards somebody, I think it really helps out. I mean, we could go back to what I was talking about earlier when I said I was getting out of the car and each person I passed, I wanted to say something nice to them. And I think it works. I really do. So your thoughts?
Yeah. One, there'll be no hug going on. Absolutely not. But the sincere comment. So this is one of my weaknesses, Brian. I'm that person. So in the article, they talk about we have a tendency to be stingy with our kindly words. So I don't open up with it. Now, if you're doing a great job, I'll tell you did a great job, but it's not a free flowing thing. Like I work with all these captains and, there's some of them are really stellar, but I'm not going to tell them on a daily basis that they're stellar performers, but maybe that's one that I need to work on too. I do give compliments, but I'm a little stingy. And I take my wife a little bit for granted. I compliment her, but maybe not as much as not maybe. I don't compliment her as much as she deserves. I'm not sure. I'm not sure where that comes from, but yeah, this is a weakness for me.
There's also an opposite side of this that I think turns into fun, not only for you as the person and also the person receiving it. So it talks about leading with a sincere compliment. Well, there's other ways. It doesn't just have to be a sincere compliment. It could be a joking manner because you have a good relationship that you're building. So for instance, sometimes I'll look at people and I'll be like, hey, you work out? And it's always funny when you ask somebody, hey, you work out? They'll look at themselves at some point and they'll be like, yeah, I've been going to the gym. And then I like to finish that off with, I could not even tell.
Yeah, that last one is a tad bit odd, my friend. If I didn't know you and you just said, hey, do you work out? I'd be like, eh. But it actually, funny enough, I just told you I had the pleasant experience with Enterprise rental car recently in Berlin. And the guy says, hey, you look like you work out more than me. And it sparked a little conversation, and it may have sparked me a free upgrade on my ride instead of a compact car. So, I mean, he started it, and I sat there and had a discussion with this guy. Maybe it was because of the warmth he showed with that little compliment. He may have reeled me in, and it sparked that little conversation with his charisma.
Exactly, man. I mean, that's the thing. It's like you spark a small conversation because you know something about someone else, probably, or you kind of guesstimate something about them. Put more warmth in your voice. I think that's just kind of like having that varied voice, and people know you have a varied voice. And when I say that, it's like, because some people like to talk aggressively. Some people like to talk really, or they're just naturally talk really, really soothing and like, for instance, whenever I booked my wife a day at the spa there in Dixon, the guy that talks to you on the phone, like he's probably the most soothing voice I've ever heard in my life. Like I would call him just to go to sleep because it's just, yeah, how are you? Well, it's good, thank you. Glad you called. Well, it'll be wonderful. So it's always hilarious when you talk to him. He's a real nice guy too. I actually met him for the first time when I was home. But I think how we relate our voice, how we speak to someone, I think using those different levels of the voice, I think that helps. And now adding warmth to the voice, well, they could be like, well, Ed, man, I'm really glad you're here. I threw some emphasis in really, it's how you emphasize certain words sometimes. Now, if I was just talking to you, I was like, how is your mother? That sounds stupid, but if I said instead, I was like, Ed, how's your mother? And I kind of, I don't know. And then I look at you a certain way, it may show the warmth you need to want to, convey a message back to me. I don't know. But I do think I think how you convey things through your voice and how you make the right inflection, I think it helps. I really do. So I don't disagree with that at all.
Yeah, I think that your tone and your pitch, which we learned a lot about working at the NCO Academy, the tone and pitch change everything. It can change a complete meaning of a sentence through your tone and pitch. So I agree. Putting more warmth in your voice is an excellent way to demonstrate warmth and improve your charisma.
Yeah, definitely. This next one, Ed, I don't know how you feel about it, but it talks about their body language. When I read this, I was kind of like, it almost conflicts with what it was talking about in the power one, because it's like you're mirroring somebody and you're not you're not being you. That's why I have a hard time with the whole mirroring the body language. But then again, I mean, maybe you have something that you understand something a little bit more than I do. So what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, you know what? I'm kind of on board with you with this. So I think it's a slippery slope for one, because if somebody picks up on you mirroring their body language, it could have a negative effect. And then it's also a time and place thing. So you have to understand that as well. In the middle of a disagreement is not the time to be mimicking anything of that person. So it's I think it's kind of a slippery slope. But it's also talks about maybe it's a way of breaking a tone, and helping you to deal with somebody who is defensive. But I'm not really a fan. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a big fan of Olivia Fox Cabane. I'm not a fan of this one.
Yeah. But then he goes right into, Ed, he goes into relaxing your posture. And I guess I could see where he means by this whole relaxing your posture. Like, for instance, like if I'm really interested in a story, tend to I'll basically grab my knee with both my arms and kind of lean back a little bit, if that makes sense. That's just kind of to me, that's like a relaxing, like I'm relaxing back when I'm listening to a story. It's when I start fidgeting and stuff, then you know that I'm not really paying attention. But to me, I could see how relaxing your posture a bit will help people realize that you're kind of connecting with them. And then it says also opening up your body. I sit with my legs crossed quite a bit, and it says instead of crossing your legs, have them open. I guess it sends certain types of signals to people when you're like that. But then again, it's like I think it's about your comfort and their comfort at the same time. You know, it's are you comfortable in how you're sitting or standing or whatever, and just being yourself. What do you think?
So I do believe that there is an importance in nonverbal communication. I can see how both of these kind of play into that. But, I've talked about before that I just naturally cross my arms across my body. And I don't mean it as a way of shutting off. It's just I'm comfortable that way. So I've been working on not doing that as much, especially in some of these meetings with like when I'm in a meeting with some higher representatives or something. So, yeah, but I mean, I can see that is a nonverbal communication, right? So because Brian and Ed don't feel like crossing your legs is, sending a negative signal, that doesn't mean that the person sitting across from us does not see it as that. So I can understand kind of that too. But for me, I don't know. I'm just comfortable that way, even though it gives that message. But we should be aware, right, of our nonverbal, because we may be trying to show warmth, but our nonverbal signals show a lack of warmth and has the opposite effect. It's again a slippery slope, my friend.
Yeah, and it's a combination thing, though. It's a combination of different things, I want to say, in the situation, maybe what is being talked about. Because the very next one, we're given the idea of give them your kind eyes. And this is what they have to say about this. Kate often describes people as having kind eyes. It's a gaze that some people give that makes others feel warm, accepted, and understood. I have a church leader when I was in high school who had kind eyes, and yet The man was a beast. Despite being in his 50s, he could bench press 350 plus pounds and look like he could rip your head off. But he had the kindest eyes. Even when you felt like the world was falling down around you, he'd look at you and you'd instantly feel like everything was going to be okay. Eyes are the window to your soul, and kind eyes are rooted in the goodness of your heart. But there is also a way to enhance the kindness of your eyes to make sure your inner warmth is shining through. You do it by switching to a softer focus. Instead of squinting and staring a person down like you're about to punch them, relax your face and open up your focus. If your face feels relaxed around your eyes, you'd likely have achieved kind eyes. I like to relate the kind eyes thing almost to like smiling eyes. You know what I mean? Like when you smile, your eyes are a certain way, and it's delightful. So, and you can usually tell, like if you covered somebody's face, everything but their eyes, you could almost tell if they're frowning or if they're smiling or laughing or whatnot. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Well, so I can tell you with me and my children, you can tell because our eyes close if we smile. So all three of us, both my kids do it. We have pictures where we're all like laughing, giggling, professional pictures taken, and nobody's eyes are open.
But Ed, I mean, you like me, you've met people before where they just have like an angry look to them, and it's almost like, you know what? I really don't know if I want to talk with that person, right? Or you do want to talk to them. It's like they just don't feel like they're connected because they just have an angry look to them. Or you also have the people that you're like, wow, they're just so easygoing, and then all of a sudden they snap, and you're like, whoa, I never seen that coming, So, I mean, either way.
Yeah, you do. Clint Eastwood comes to mind when he does the squint,
Yeah.
Go ahead, punk. But so I practice this. I practice not having the kind eyes in certain situations. When we're traveling and we're in a crowded environment, and because a lot of times in Europe you'll get warned, there's a lot of pickpockets. So I try to have that look like, I'm not going near him, but it's intentional. And then as soon as we get out of that environment, like a train or a bus or whatever the closed-in environment is, then I can relax my gaze and I can have my kind eyes again. So sometimes
here's a funny thing. You've seen my ID card before, haven't you? Yeah, you have.
Yes.
So I purposely so ID cards, or if I do command photos, I try to have kind eyes and smile just because I think it's just nicer. I don't know why, but I had somebody tell me once,
I think it's important.
You're supposed to give them that mean face. And I'm like, no, why? Do I want to scare somebody so they won't come see me? No.
Yeah, I think that, so that was one of the knocks on my photos at the academy from Sarah is that I was bald and had this stare. And one time, Sergeant Major Sellers was visiting us, and he came to me and he goes, "Hey, is that your picture out there, Sergeant?" And I said, "Roger, Sergeant Major." He says, "Hey, Sergeant, it's okay to smile. It's okay." So just kind of a funny thing about the look. And I was supposed to be the suicide prevention non-commissioned officer, and Sarah said, "Nobody's coming to talk to you." Like, not with that look. So I grew my hair out and started smiling more.
That's it, man. And I'll tell you, I think it's working. All right. So now we're going to anticipate some needs, Ed. Giving someone something they might need without them having to ask shows that you're thinking about them. You know how I like to relate this? And this person talks about giving somebody like a pack of 5-hour energies or whatever. I think coffee works that way. You just give somebody a coffee and you give it to them, and they're like, "Oh, you gave me a coffee. That's awesome." Except for that doesn't work for my commander, Ed. He thinks coffee tastes like chalk. And I told him there's something wrong with his taste buds.
How long has he been in the Army?
Well, he hasn't hit 30 yet, so he's on by.
Yeah. So honestly, I didn't start drinking coffee until I was in my 17th year in the Army. So I was a late bloomer.
No, I think, so, I mean, obviously and I've tried it already with him like 3 different times. I like get different types of coffees made and be like, oh, maybe you'll like this one, or maybe, just to do something nice for him. And every time he's like, nope, still tastes like chalk. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not buying you another thing, buddy. Forget it. All right. But
That's
in
that's funny you say coffee. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Brian.
Oh no. In most cases though, that works on people. If you get them a coffee, they're really happy. And a coffee doesn't cost hardly anything, So what were you gonna say, brother?
No, I was gonna say that so if you look at the next one, that coffee plays into our next one too. But before we move to that, so the anticipate the needs, I remember so this time last year, actually, one of my old platoon leaders was killed in that limousine accident in New York State. And I remember that she used to have the code to my office, right? We were deployed, we were in Iraq. I had some challenging soldiers. And if it was a particular period of time, so inventories was really stressful for me because I was operating as the supply sergeant or what have you. I would come into my office and she would have left a monster on my desk in my office. Like, she'll use the code, get in, put a monster. And I knew it was her. She never would admit it, but I knew it was her. So she anticipated like, yep, I know you're having a difficult time, but hopefully this will, ease that a little bit. So, and she definitely had great charisma. Her warmth was amazing, as a platoon leader / XO leader. So it does help. So I've been on the other side where somebody anticipated my needs, and it does give you a boost too, right? So just an interesting thing. But your commander in that coffee, I'm not sure about, but he's messing you up on 2 of these points on this discussion right now.
Yeah, you know what though? The next one, maybe I'll just get him some hot chocolate with marshmallows in them. Who knows? Maybe he'll like that. So the next one is offer something warm to drink. I could see how that works out, because something warm to drink, well, especially in the cooler months, like I don't know about, something warm to drink in the dead heat of the summer. I'm probably going to give you a Gatorade or something. I don't know, but I could definitely see giving somebody something warm to drink when it's a little bit cooler out, and how that, because it gives them that warm feeling automatically. Plus it's a gift at the same time. I mean, hey, why not?
Yeah. And so what this really highlighted to me is his last sentence. This may explain why coffee shops are a great place for first dates and business meetings. All right. I don't know about the first date, but it is a reason probably that a lot of business is conducted in coffee shops because of the warm feeling provided by warm drinks.
So in my own personal life, it's funny. It talks about the business meetings. In my own personal life, quite a few years back, we had to meet with a behavioral therapist for our guy. And we met her actually at a coffee shop. It was a Starbucks of all of them. But it's funny, like it was a decent, like, one, I love to be able to just sit there and drink coffee anyway. So whatever, I love coffee. But here we are many years later. I mean, almost 9 years later, actually, I think 8 years later. And we still have a great relationship with that individual. And like, matter of fact, I think it was about not even a year, right about a year ago, like she gave my daughter a bunch of American dolls, like in I don't know if you've ever, like, this American doll thing, like they're really, really, really expensive. I took my daughter we've taken her to the store a couple times, and I always shake my head like, how can this cost this much? But she just gave this stuff to my daughter. I mean, that the type of relationship was built. And it's funny because I think back, like when we first met her, it was at a coffee shop. That's where we decided to meet. So I think it built the relationship from there. All right. Let's see here. Give a good handshake. I truly believe to this one. And this is why I'm going to say this. One of the biggest things and I've said it before on here, that I try to do when I shake someone's hand, I try to stand up, but sometimes you can't do it fast enough. And it may seem a little creepy if you just bolt right up. So I try to stand up, and usually people will say, oh, you don't have to stand up. And I personally will tell them, no, I've always been told to stand up when you shake a person's hand. But I always felt like a good handshake kind of, it's almost like as soon as you have that human contact, that physical contact with somebody, you can almost kind of tell the type of person they are. If it's too strong of a handshake, you're like, you're trying a little too hard here, right? So now they're trying. Now, but if it's too loose, you're like, I don't quite know if you're going to be able to stand up for yourself or anybody else, because that just seems a little too, less. It's just like,
Interesting.
I'm telling you, it just test it out. So when you shake somebody's hand, think about how for that moment, how it feels. The ones that always bother me are like the sweaty palms. Those are the worst. Those are the ones that because sometimes they're a good solid handshake, but then you have the sweaty palm and you're like, oh, I just don't know, the hygiene, whatever. But that's just me. My brain starts thinking about this stuff. I think a good handshake that's firm, yet at the same time, you're not trying to, crush somebody's hand. I think that's just the right handshake. What are your thoughts on handshakes, man?
So, very interesting. So I recently attended a conference with a bunch of senior officials from the German military. And when they greet you in the morning, when they come in, right, when they enter the room, they are shaking every hand in that room when they come in. It's a German thing. It's just like they circulate through the room, literally like in order. So I was like, oh, let me take an opportunity to practice giving a good handshake as learned from this article. I really focus mostly on a good firm handshake with good eye contact with the Germans, and then a greeting of the day, good morning, good afternoon, whatever. And I thought that it went well. Like I thought that, it shows some power for both of you. It shows some respect. Now, the one thing is, it doesn't matter. You hop up. Like, how you talk about that kind of, it's awkward if you just jump up suddenly. There, it's everybody's hopping up, because you can watch the Germans greet fellow Germans too, and they hop up. So I'd seen that. I was on the opposite side of the room for where they were entering. So once I noticed that, I was like, okay, so no sitting down, then I'll awkwardly jump up too. The other one that I did mess up, so I did one time. So I got up anticipating the handshake, right? And they shook the people at the table, and I was like in the second row of chairs behind the table. And so now I'm standing there awkwardly, because I thought they were going to go like, shake to the table, to the left, shake to the right, shake to the left. No, they went all the way down the table, then came back. So I was standing there for a couple of seconds, awkwardly. But lesson learned, right? So because of where I work now, and I'm going to be meeting with a lot of like senior military officials from other nations, this is one of the ones that I thought was really important to practice. The thing that I also did not practice, but I will next time, is if you look, it tells you to, where did I see it at? To extend your index finger onto the inside of the person's wrists as you clasp their hand. Some communication experts believe that by touching someone's pulse point as you shake hands, they will feel more connected. So I think I might try that next time I attend one of these conferences, is to try to, extend that. So it's interesting. And again, it just worked out that I had that conference, so I got to try some of the stuff that we've learned this week.
It's funny you talk about that too. I have one of the Korean soldiers. He's one of the. It's the, how do I explain this? They call it the Rock Army here, right? But he's right there. So they talk about the Rock U.S. alliance constantly. So I always say, well, we need to strengthen that. So we need to be courteous with one another. So the first time I want to say it was around the first couple times that I ever shook his hand. At first, it was just a handshake, right? And then there was one time, Ed, I shook his hand, and then I pulled him in for a bro hug. And ever since then, he's been giving me bro hugs. Every time I see him, he gives me a bro hug. Like it's so funny too. So, but yeah, I definitely think. But what happened was, it was kind of like a buildup. Like I would get a little closer and closer, and finally I just kind of like bro hugged him once, and now every time he just, and it's like this last time he gave me one, it almost felt like he like had his head on my shoulder, and I was like, okay, whatever, it felt a little weird at the time, so I try to be a little more. I'll try to be more sturdy.
I mean, it's good though, right? Like I think it's interesting how different cultures see it too.
Absolutely.
The art of the handshake, if you will.
Yeah. And I think that really falls into this next whole thing about make them feel comfortable. The only problem is when you read this about make them feel comfortable is you really don't know if somebody's comfortable or not. You know what I mean? You can only try, and that's going off of your perception of the situation. People are in eternally grateful for the person who saves them from standing awkwardly alone. One of the best ways to show warmth is to introduce people to those you are with and invite them into the conversation. Also, be able to carry the burden of a conversation in any situation by becoming a master of small talk. People love having someone over to a gathering who they know will keep the conversation going. Now, that used to be tough for me, like to create the small talk. But what I found is often with small talk, if you can turn it into some type of laughter, but like for instance, sometimes I'll make fun of myself in a weird small way, but not enough to like take away power or any of that. People seem to be more loose and happy, right? If they laugh. And my wife will tell you. So for instance, if we walk into somewhere, we go into somewhere, like say it's just a large gathering room and it's a lot of people, she'll tell you, I'll go around and try to like meet everybody in the room, right? It's just, I don't know. I'm like a people person. I want to talk to different people and stuff. I think that helps out too, because then once you get to know each little individual, then you can start making connections with different types of peoples. Hey, Jim, come over here and talk to Bob. You wouldn't believe what he does. You would totally love this, stuff like that. And then what you do is you're the one that starts to make all the connections for people. And that's kind of the reason why I like to do that is now they remember who you are because of how you were able to connect them with somebody else who was of like in some nature as them. You know what I'm saying?
That makes sense. I like and that's why I kind of love this new job too, because I like kind of like getting into conversations, meeting different people, and getting that flow going. Now, it is a little bit challenging. The small talk thing is something I got to work on because I already wasn't great at it, but now you're doing it with people from other walks of life. You know what I mean? Like, small talk to somebody from Greece is probably not the same as small talk to somebody in the United States. And so that's something I personally have to work on as I, learn to better deal with other countries.
Exactly, man. That's a good way to think about it, man. All right. So here's another one. Remembering dates, anniversaries, and details. I think that just comes in with being personable. Personally, if you're able to remember those types of things, but at the same time, I know in our profession we deal with so many people, and you're not going to remember all that stuff. It's almost impossible. But if you find out, like for instance, if you find out somebody's birthday is today, will be tomorrow, or was yesterday, or within that realm, then it's good to point out and say, hey, I didn't know it was your birthday. Somebody such and such told me happy birthday. Or, hey, isn't you and your wife had an anniversary next week? Yeah. Well, hey, happy anniversary. I hope you have a great time together. Stuff like that. Or what are you doing for your anniversary? Just small stuff like that. It's commenting on it once you know it, I think helps. I don't believe, and I don't know how you are, Ed, when it comes to like me, I remember my anniversary and my wife's birthday and my children's birthday. But other than that, there's not a lot more that I'm going to remember. How about you?
Yeah, no, I'm not real good. If they're outside of that, my children's siblings, spouse thing and parents, I barely remember, my siblings, but, it's not, easy to remember that stuff, for all these people. And as I get older, it gets more difficult, I think, to remember those things. So that my kids are easy because I had one real close to my birthday. So that made it super duper easy. So I really only had to remember one, but yeah, no, it's not easy. And I've seen people who are very gifted and have great memories that can remember that stuff, but I'm not one of them. Now, I might remember something like, oh, hey, Brian, last time I saw you were going on this fishing trip. How'd that go? Like something that piques my interest. But if it's some not really interesting thing to me, I may not remember that. So that is a little difficult to hash out. I mean, not hash out, but to remember those little details, especially anniversaries. Like, come on, man. Come on. I can remember mine. Like, beyond that, you're asking for it. I know my brother's is in October. That's what I know. I got a month. I'm within 30 days minimum, right?
I get a waiver. Yeah, and that is why I love my electronic calendar, that I can have it in there too. So helps me out. All right, so hey, this next
one. Oh, well, the book helps you out too. I mean, but
what about giving thoughtful gifts? This one, I think, when because you've said a couple times, slippery slope. I think this can be considered a slippery slope. Giving thoughtful gifts, it all depends. It depends on the relationship, depends upon the person. It just depends upon a lot of different things, and I think you have to be careful with it because and so in our profession, it's pretty much a no-no. You really don't do that. You really shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
But like then again, it's like, what's the difference between giving a coffee and giving something else? Yeah, it's just you just have to be careful, right? But like for instance, if somebody said, they like this particular marker, and you're at the supply room and you're getting stuff, and you grab an extra marker and give it to them, I don't think that's bad, but it makes it creepy though at the same time. You know what I mean? Like I think that would be creepy. Like, why'd you give me that marker? Right?
Yeah, no, this is a delicate balance-ish. And again, it depends on your position, right? So again, for us, if somebody from Germany comes to visit us, right, from the Germany military, we try to get them a coffee mug with our unit logo on it. Just a small little thoughtful gift. So, in that situation, yeah, but I'm not like randomly and I may take let's say I'm going to get coffee, and I may grab 3 coffees and take to work for my NCOs I work with. Something small like that. But then when we start getting the gifts, like I had to order this off of Amazon for you, then we're getting into, I kind of think, a gray or dark gray area.
Yeah, possibly inappropriate relationship type thing. Yeah. And that's why I'm cautious about like giving thoughtful gifts. But then again, I'll go back and say, so the person I talked to, I mentioned earlier, we met in a coffee shop because, well, she's a behavioral therapist. While we were down in Disney World, there was one of these like little lapel pins that they have, but it was for that movie Inside Out. Do you remember that, Ed? With like all the different emotions and stuff. You had like joy.
Yeah, I remember. I haven't seen it, but I remember.
No. So it had like a little lever, and the pin actually said, I'm feeling like this today or whatever. And you can move it, and you could set it to sadness, joy, anger, all these things. And I told my wife, I was like, that's a great gift to give Jane. She'll love that because, I mean, that's what she does. I felt like that was appropriate. I really did, because of the relationship, and basically it involved her profession. So it's something she could actually have her, professionally, and it wasn't too far over bounds. And I mean, we pay like, I think you pay like $10 for those things or whatever. But so then again, so it wasn't like an intimate gift or anything like that. It was a nice professional, hey, we were thinking about you when we saw this, so we got it type gift, and then take care of things. I think this one, I personally believe this one, it works, but you don't want it to work too good, because then people will want you to take care of things for them all the time, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And it could be something like somebody says, hey, I meant to get to this and I couldn't figure it out. And you say, oh, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it for you. Well, you have to be careful on how many of those I'll take care of it for you throw out there, because you could, you could overburden yourself. And then 2, if you do it too much, people think they can just give you stuff all the time. And then now you're going to get burnt out. But you agree, obviously, yes?
Oh, 100%, because I'm not going to give an example, but we'll just say, if you take care of things for people and it's a daily task, and then you take care of it 3 days in a row, you could now be in danger of making an expectation where now they don't do it anymore. You do it every day. and now it's off their plate. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like
Mm-hmm.
really slippery slope.
Yeah, yeah. You're taking on what should be their daily tasks. Yeah, that exactly right. So
Yeah.
I find it's you have to play with it and you don't do it too much, but if you do it every once in a while, I think it works out. Now,
Yeah.
this
And I
very
also,
next one,
oh,
I
sorry.
think it works. Go ahead.
Yeah. So before we move on, the other thing is, there's the old saying about the teach a man to fish, right? So if you have the opportunity, don't, I could take care of your stuff, your travel stuff for you, or I can kick it back to you and say, hey, come see me, log you in and say, here's the problems I have with your travel voucher. Um, this. So you need to show this. Now you understand the problem and you fix it yourself. So I took care of it, but I also educated you so that you learn something and
Mm-hmm.
bettered yourself. And then I shouldn't see that problem out of you again. Whereas if I just do it for you, it's probably going to be okay. Next time you travel, same error. Next time you travel, I'll fix it, same error. We're not getting anywhere. You know what I mean, Brian? So I have to aid you in your ability to, for lifelong learning to be able to do your stuff for you. If, there's instances obviously where I can take care of something. It's not that big a deal. But like when we start talking about procedures and things, those are the things I need to show you, not do for you.
I think if you walk somebody through something to help them, I think that takes care of them more than if you take care of it for them yourself. And I've done that many times. Hey, once you open up that, okay, yeah, just click on that right there. All right, what are you reading? That is exactly what I'm thinking. Okay, do this, that type of thing. Or hey, grab that wrench. Yep, you're going to use that one. And make sure you go a certain distance. You talk somebody through it. I think it gives them a little bit more understanding. I think
It's a multiplier, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because if they go through the motions, most of the time, in many cases, they're going to learn from it or they're going to remember that. But if you're doing the motions the whole time, and when I say motions, I mean if it's dealing with a computer, if they're moving the mouse around, they're doing it, they're going to remember those movements. If you're doing all of it and they're just watching you, guarantee they're going to forget it.
Ooh.
I know they will. I mean, I've done it. So asking for help. This one, I find this is a tool to put in your toolbox for any situation. But I also think you have to know who you're talking to before you ask for the help. You may want to kind of know the capabilities of that person, the things that they are talented in, not so talented in, the things that they are very knowledgeable on, possibly not so knowledgeable on. Because if you go just throwing out asking for help from people, you may put yourself in a disaster where you're actually digging yourself in a hole. Or if you're asking for help, you may be burdening them more than you know. So you have to be careful about it. I like to notice what people are good at, and I compliment them. That was one of the steps on what they're able to do. And then I'll ask them, but do you mind if you could help me out with this? Because I could use your expertise, right? So I'm packaging that up. I'm using all that in one to get somebody to help me with something. And I'm also earning their trust because I showed trust in them that they could accomplish something with with me, for the organization, whatever it is we're doing. You use that much, Ed?
So this is and this is another theme to the show. We've talked about this a lot. This is checking my ego is what this is.
Yes.
And I've seen this recently. Like, so if you have three people who have been doing the same job for a year longer than you, right? And now you're thrust into that job and you're just scrambling to try to figure life out in this task that you do, whatever it is, right? But you will not go to the two guys who have been there longer than you to ask for help. So now you have a reputation as a seat of your pants kind of guy. You know what I mean? Like you're a scrambler, where the other people have this reputation of they know what's going on. But it's because all it would take is to say, hey, look, man, I'm new to this. This is where I'm at. but I'm not certain on this. And then them to say, oh, you know what? I did that 6 months ago, and here's how I handled it. It's that simple as to ask for some help, right? You're showing them your willingness to cooperate, but and that's where that warmth that gets you that feeling, that warmth feeling, because they're like, hey, one, you're complimenting them, right? Because you're telling them, hey, I realize you know more than me, so I could really use your help. And to me, as the person who's the more experienced, that's a compliment. You're saying, hey, you're showing you value what I think. So there's that connection. But when you just don't ask for help, another old saying, problems don't get better with time. And now the things you're doing maybe weren't right. And by the time somebody says, hey, you need help, you're going to take help, right? Those other people have to invest more time in fixing your errors because you took so long to ask for help and had to be forced to take it. So it doesn't get better. And now there's ill will and ill feelings in your organization towards you because you waited so long to ask for that help. So, I think that's very, very important to check your ego. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it definitely it improves upon the person who you are as a person too. When you're able to, it shows a sense of humility. Put it that way, and then be liberal with thank you notes. To me, it could be just saying thank you. Also, I think if you're liberal with that alone, I find that just that's showing that gratitude that helps create that warmth that that you need to convey with others. Other than that, Ed, wow, that was quite the list of stuff to go over, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. And thank you Brian for taking me on this journey. I'll write you a note later. However, talking about a note, it doesn't have to be a note, right? I just thanked you, and sincerely, Brian, I mean, we're coming up on our year, and I do thank you for bringing me on this journey or asking me to join you on this journey. So that's a sincere thank you. Now maybe I'll send you a note later from Dublin. Maybe.
As long as you're not sending me a breakup note, I'm cool.
No. Dear John.
That's my middle name.
I know that.
What's that?
I knew that.
No, I bet you did. So here's something on here that the author also wrote in here. I came across a great quote from W.H. Auden on this subject just last week. Human beings are by nature actors who cannot become something until first they have pretended to be it. They are therefore not to be divided into the hypocritical and the sincere, but into the sane and know they are acting, and the mad who do not. People who intentionally cultivate their charisma are not fake, nor manipulative, just realistic. Doing whatever comes naturally is given a lot of lip service these days, but it won't actually get you far in life. Always seeking to intentionally put your best foot forward will. Yeah, and just how we figure out how to develop our charisma, and by using all these 3 steps or these 3 areas with the multiple steps in it, I think we could really capture what it takes. And to tell you the truth, Ed, not everybody has to do all this stuff. But what it is, it's a building block. And if they achieve a certain area, they can start developing other areas. To me, that's the way I see it. How do you feel about the whole idea of developing your charisma through the presence, power, and then finally with the warmth?
So I agree and kind of disagree-ish. Not really. So the way I see it is, if you can develop a little bit of each, then you start to immediately see a difference. I think you'll see a difference in your charisma, because even in the article, it talks throughout the articles, it talks a little bit about like being unbalanced could lead to, too much power, not enough warmth could lead to arrogance or seeming aloof. So you want to have a little bit of each, but I think that if you improve yourself a little bit in each of these areas, you'll improve your charisma. And then over time and space, if you continue to go that way, I think that you'll see a big difference in how people respond when you walk into a room.
Absolutely. And that's the whole point. It's, it's just, how do you influence people? And I think this is just another way to become a better influencer or a better leader, so to speak. And to tell you the truth, that part where I'd read about people being actors, I truly believe, yeah, you're an actor to a certain extent until you've perfected that art of sorts. And now that becomes part of you in a sense. It could be multiple things. But other than that, Ed, you got much more to say about charisma and the three elements before we let this one go?
No, I look forward to working on these things and becoming the most electrifying personality in my organization.
I'm pretty sure you're already there, my friend. So I wouldn't even worry about that.
That's a Dwayne Johnson reference.
I know. So, hey, those of you listening, if you haven't done it yet, please go join our closed Facebook group and be a part of the conversations. There's multiple that go all the way back to episode 1 and come all the way up till now. But go on there and talk about it. The task this week, the only task I'm going to give you is you can work on this warmth thing on your own. But the task is once you introduce this show to somebody else, just introduce it to someone. And allow them the chance, maybe pick out one of the ones that you like the best and say, hey, maybe you should give this a try. And just introduce it to them and see if they do like it or not. All right. But you can find us at 101 Influence. That's on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, any of those. Just search that and you'll find us and just join the groups or follow us, whatever, you feel like you could do. But other than that, we have the website, www.instinctiveinfluencers.com. You can check that out. And hey, feedback. We love feedback. We talked about it during the AAR show some time ago. We love to hear more feedback about this. And our very next show, we got some special guests on it. It was a real fun time. Actually, we recorded this previous to this. While I was back in the States, and I think I personally thought it was a great time and I enjoyed it. And I know Ed did too. And the two individuals we had on the show, I think they both liked it. And I can't wait to get it out to you also. Please, you'll love it. Make sure you give it a good listen. And then we're coming up on episode 50. 50, Ed. I can't believe it. I mean, it's just 50. It's insane, man, that we've done this many episodes and it seems like we're not stopping anytime soon. The crazy things is how we get new ideas all the time. It's like, how do you fit all these in? But hey, we're going to keep going and we're going to keep getting after it. All right, Ed, you ready to go, bud?
I did have one more thing, Brian. I wanted to say that it's a great week because this week the Washington Nationals are World Series champions. I just wanted to throw that out there real quick.
It kind of reminds me of a meme I saw, and it was about them, the Mystic, and another team, and then it had the Redskins. It's like, we're national, not you, champions.
You're being hold on. You're being very disrespectful with the other team. That would be the Washington Capitals, who at this point are number 1 in hockey and the Stanley Cup champions from the year before last. So yes, I saw it. I've also seen the one where it's like SpongeBob and Patrick, and he's looking down at Patrick, and it's the Redskins, and it says it's like all the teams that won championships, and then the Redskins are like looking through the grate sadly at them. So maybe one day, not anytime soon.
Who knows?
I'm a Redskin fan, but it won't be soon.
So, we'll see what happens.
I had to mention that World Series. I don't know how much you watched of it, but first time ever that the home team didn't win a game. So it's odd.
Yeah. Well, I did watch a little bit with my friend. When it would be on, if it was on, I would just have it on because I really don't like watching a lot of the other channels of AFN so much. I mean, AFN's not a bad thing. I think it's pretty cool how they're able to do a lot of stuff and show us a lot of stuff. But usually if there's some type of sports on, whether it's baseball, football, or basketball, I'll have the channel on that. So, and if it's football, then it's automatically going to be on football. I don't care who's playing, even if it's like Miami Dolphins, which they are so bad.
Oh,
and they just
I'm thankful for them being bad because that's the Redskins' lone win.
Yeah. That was a horrible game too, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Did you see that? It was like the Dolphins are playing somebody, and it's being broadcast on a Cartoon Network this week.
Yeah. It was. Yeah. That was. Yeah.
Which is funny because the bearded ninja is a Dolphins fan.
I know. So. I feel for him. Well, you know, they've had their times before, a long time ago, but yeah. Anyway, Ed, we're gonna close this one out.
Alrighty.
I am Brian.
And I am Ed.
And this has been the Instinctive Influencers podcast. We thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.